Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, today we are talking about inventors we love. This time, George Westinghouse.
Yeah, I love me some George Westinghouse.
Do you?
He's a burger.
He is a burger.
He's a huge Pittsburgher.
Not a Wahlburger. We went to Wahlburgers
We
before.
did. That was a very good hamburger.
Yeah, very greasy. I liked it.
Yeah.
Fun facts to start things off for you.
You're
we're gonna go easy
Okay,
here.
okay.
He founded 60 companies in his lifetime.
that was
60.
bananas.
How is that possible?
So here's what. So first of all, doing all this engineers we love, it makes me feel horrible about myself.
Oh my gosh, we're the worst at everything.
We are the worst.
Yeah.
And it's because most of the stuff that all these crazy engineers did, they were like in their teens and 20s, and here I am at, 37.
It took me a second there.
Here I am at 37, and I haven't invented anything.
If 60 companies isn't bad enough, he received over 100 patents in his life, and he held over 300. So I think the difference there is, like, he got them for his inventions for 100,
Yeah.
and then he bought other people's.
Yeah, I think he bought a lot.
Yeah, which is great. So how many do you have?
None.
None, okay.
And-
so when you
and
total us together, we're still at the nice round 0. So
Hey.
that's good.
We're consistent, James.
I know people that have them, though.
You do.
Yeah, so do you.
I do too. Yes,
Yeah.
I do. Rita,
But-
I think, has one.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I
Oh,
think.
well, there we go. Okay, so anyways, how about his early life?
Yes.
I always thought, in my ignorance, like most things, that he was born in Pittsburgh because there's a lot of George Westinghouse stuff
Tons of
here. There's actually a George Westinghouse technology park literally half a mile from my
and
house.
Westinghouse, the company, was based here for
Right.
years and years and years.
But he was born in New York
Yeah.
in 1846. And that's that. He was the 8th of 10 kids. So just think how disappointed his parents are in the other 9 kids,
Right,
right?
poor kids.
What a bunch of useless
Your brother
children.
George.
This is kind of weird. Like this, I don't know. Thinking back to these days, he served in the Union Army for the Civil War. Like that's a long
And
time
then
ago.
the cat re-enlisted too.
He re-enlisted.
Yeah, so apparently he went and then came home and then he was.
Then he's like, I need me some more war.
Yeah, you gotta love people that are willing to serve. I liked him even more when I did the research. I always liked him, but the fact that he not only was a crazy good inventor, but he served his country, I thought was pretty
He had to
cool.
have been really young doing that as well, though.
Yeah.
Just based on the dates here.
Yep.
But after the war, his dad had an agricultural machinery and steam engine
Yep.
business, because apparently that's a thing.
That's where he learned how to do all his drafting and
Yeah.
mechanical engineering.
Right. So apparently it ran in the family. So after the war and after he quit college, he didn't even make it one semester in college. He was like, yeah, this isn't for me.
It seems to be a trend with a lot of these
This is
inventors.
where we went wrong, and that's a mistake we can't make up for. So, I mean,
we didn't drop out.
now that we've finished school, we basically are destined to fail.
Doomed.
Yeah, so he went and worked at his dad's family business, and this is where he invented a rotary steam engine
Yeah, I saw
at his
that.
dad's shop, scoring his first patent, I think at 19, something
Yeah,
like that.
19.
So we're already a little bit behind. So that's his early life.
Well, he had a couple more before he finished up his early life.
Okay,
So
well, I
at
guess
age-
early is a relative
At
term.
age 21, he invented something he called the car replacer.
Ooh, the car
And for some reason, he had this affinity. I don't know if it's where he lived for like railroad industry.
Yeah, that
type
seems like where
things.
it all started, huh?
Yeah, so before his big one, which we'll talk about here in a
Yes,
second,
yes.
he invented a couple of different devices. One was whenever a car would get derailed, and not like derailed, tipped over like accident, but just like jump
the
the
wheels,
tracks.
yeah.
He invented a device that would actually get them on the track that was really easy, called the car replacer.
That's neat.
And then he also had another one. It was called the reversible frog. I'm not sure if these are legit names. I mean, this is only as good as Wikipedia research.
That sounds like a yoga position, right?
It does, it does. So it was a device used with a railroad switch to guide trains onto 2 different tracks. So I'm assuming it's that thing you see in all those old Snidely Whiplash movies where he's like,
pull the
"Arr!"
handle
and he got
and then-
like the maiden laying across
she
the
doesn't get
tracks,
run over
and he
then.
runs over and
Yeah.
shoots it with a gun or pulls it. I'm assuming that's what that is. I'm guessing that's him. I
Okay,
don't know.
good job, George.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. I wonder how often a train goes off the tracks and doesn't fall over. Because aren't they kind of heavy?
Yeah.
I guess if they're like passenger cars or not loaded, they're probably bottom heavy, so it's okay. But if you're
Yeah.
filled up with coal or something like what we see running through town, like that's
Yeah.
gonna tip over.
Yeah, because I mean those trucks on the bottom, those things are ridiculously heavy. So I would imagine unless you're totally loaded, like even if you had cars, I don't even think the weight of like having like if it was a car carrier, I would think that those trucks are so heavy the center of gravity would stay pretty low. But coal, I could see that.
All right. So, anyways, let's move on to his big invention,
one.
we'll call it. In 1869, he founded Westinghouse Air Brake Company, WABCO, which, what did it make? Oh, air brakes.
Air brakes.
Interesting story about WABCO.
Okay.
I don't know, I assume they're still in existence.
I've
but
worked
in
for WABCO.
2009-ish, I worked for WABCO as well. We were probably on the same project and didn't even know it. Were they looking at the application of the brakes and the thermal profiling of it?
No,
Oh, okay,
I was
go
there
ahead.
doing some contract work, and it was just on like the standard like mechanical engineering side. It was just doing some of that stuff. Nothing simulation.
Okay, so I was working with them on some of their simulation stuffs, and I think this was in South Carolina, if I
Okay.
remember correctly. And they basically had the profile of their route and all the times the air brakes, because they were automatic, would be applied, and therefore they knew what the temperature would be. So they wanted to analyze like the temperature profile and the resulting thermal stress through a whole run of the train, which
So
was
like
really
location,
cool.
like you're in Georgia and it's 80 degrees, and you're in North
Right.
Carolina.
And they were
and it's-
applying the brakes, and so like the 80 or 90 degrees really doesn't factor in that much, but the application of the brakes over and over again, kind
gotcha.
of cycling through. So that was pretty neat that they were doing this way.
Interesting thing on the air brake. So the story goes that
I like the story.
George saw an accident happen, and the way trains used to have to stop was, so you got the big, the engine in the front, and you get all the subsequent cars behind, obviously. The way you had to stop trains before air brakes, and this is mind-boggling. If you needed to stop quickly, you had to literally, they were called brakemen, they would have to run
Brakemen.
on the tops of the trains. If you saw those big
No.
wheels, they had to manually per car. So each car had its own set of brakes, and those big wheels you see sticking at the tops of cars in like the models you might see, they have to turn the wheel manually to apply the brake to individual cars. So supposedly he saw an accident of two trains coming towards one another, and they physically could not stop in time because these guys were just running on the tops, going from one car to the next, because you can't just have brakes in the front with a train. It's just way
Turns
too
out.
much, momentum and weight and all that inertia. So apparently he saw this and was like, you know what, we got to come up with a better system. And that's where he came up with the idea of the air brake.
That's unbelievable.
And-
I didn't know that's how they used to do it. I knew
Yeah.
that it was a manual process.
But it was each
and I
car
did-
had its
it-
own.
Yeah, but I didn't realize it wasn't just like a lever that someone pulled. It's up on the roof.
Yeah,
That's
and,
crazy.
And the way the air brake was designed, just to give you the details of it, is it's a centralized air system. So basically it's pressurized air. And they would have rigid tubing going to each brake on the car, and then they added flexible tubing in between the cars, so it could obviously go around bends and be attached and detached as you were adding cars. And literally with a single pull, you could brake the entire car. And the fact that this didn't exist it's kind of crazy that they had to do it that way before. But it's basically every train in the world now uses this air brake system.
So the brakes were so successful in improving safety of travel that Congress passed the Railroad Safety Appliance Act in 1893 that required air brakes on all American trains. So modern trains still use a very similar braking system today.
I heard
That's
that a
how
lot of
good these
heavy
are.
equipment and big tractor trailers use modified versions of his original design, where it's so like if you think of like a tractor trailer, they use air brakes.
Yeah.
So it's not like so that noise you hear when a tractor trailer slamming on his brakes is an air brake system.
There you go.
So
we'll talk about the pressurized air system being used elsewhere and other inventions later on. But first, let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsor.
Love when we hear from our sponsors. Who is it this week, James?
Well, this is very nice, but we still do not have one.
WABCO didn't reach out?
I emailed them, but they're backlogged right now, I think. I can
Pretty
only
sure.
assume Christmas is a big season for their air brakes.
It is?
So yeah.
I would think so.
So nothing, but I would like to give a shout out to two of our biggest, newest fans, Caitlin and Stacy. They met us at Autodesk University,
that's right.
and they were nice enough to hand out t-shirts to some of their coworkers, and they pinged us on the Instagrams, tagging us in a post of all their coworkers, or
Nice.
I assume it's coworkers, with their unprofessional engineering shirts on. So
these were the two that earlier on, like when we announced we were giving away t-shirts, basically said, I will have a t-shirt. And I believe there was like threats of violence between a couple of the different AU attendees for who was going to get the t-shirts.
things got a little crazy, and I was in fear for my life. Yes. So there was that. Anyways,
Okay.
if you subscribe to Unprofessional Engineering, email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com, and we will hook you up with some awesome stickers, and they are awesome. Also, why don't you subscribe?
Yeah.
You should be doing that already.
And write
If
a
you're listening to
review,
this
right?
now, yeah, go on iTunes, subscribe, and then write a review. If you do, it will give us more street cred with iTunes, and we will be one step closer to
World domination?
give or take.
Okay.
All right, so moving on. After Wabco and the brakes, I guess the next thing we have to talk about is electricity. What do you think?
Could we hold on electricity
Oh
for
my
a second?
goodness, what do you have that's going to be boring?
No, it's not boring.
I
It's
think
just,
it is. Go
So again, he had this apparent, affection for the railroad industry. He also invented and started companies all related to the rail industry. And
Okay.
another one is right here in Pittsburgh again, Union Switch and Signal. He started that company because apparently all of the switching equipment was like oil lanterns, and like someone would like move a piece of cardboard and to like turn. So he basically totally reinvented the way signaling and switching happened for the rail industry. And again, this company's still around today. I've actually done work at Union Switch and Signal as a contractor
Oh,
as well
nice.
too. So.
See, I thought that was boring, so I skipped it. But knowing that you've been there and done that, I like it.
So when I was
it
when I
gives
did,
you more cred.
So I did training at both. So I used to work for a reseller, and I did training for both Wabco and for Union Switch.
Nice.
And the cool thing about Union Switch was everything they made was in these really awesome like sheet metal enclosure boxes. So I remember whenever sheet metal was relatively new to design and 3D, they just loved the ability to just take a sheet metal box, flatten it, and not have to worry about it. So
There we go.
Lots of sheet metal
Yay,
training.
sheet
for
metal.
those.
All
Yeah.
right. Now can we move on to electricity?
AC/DC.
All right. Yeah. So he was big in the process of making America not care about DC, direct current.
Yep.
And also falling in love with AC.
Alternating.
There we
current.
go. All right. I was
I
hoping
didn't know this was going to be a test.
Yeah, it was. So he bought a set of Gollard Gibbs transformers. So these are some Brits, I think, or something of the sort. And a Siemens AC generator, creating an electrical system in lovely Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which was able to create a constant voltage AC generator. And so it was creating more power. That was my Tim Allen.
It was? Okay.
Yeah. Do you remember Tim Allen?
I
Tim
do.
the Toolman Taylor?
I do. I love Tim the Toolman Taylor.
All right. So what's cool about this, and you probably have more info than me because I know you love this guy, he bought up Nikola Tesla's AC motor patents, and then he hired the guy to improve his system.
Yeah.
So I thought that was neat.
I love when you get a guy like Nikola Tesla and Westinghouse working together, because the challenge was, and the reason he did what he did was, I think he was way more visionary than Thomas Edison. So Thomas Edison was all about the DCs, right?
He was.
And actually, DC was more popular in the United States at
It
the
was.
time. But the problem was, when you think of DC, I mean, basically, the battery in your car is DC. It's relatively low voltage. It can't be transmitted very far. I think it's like 1,000 yards or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's
is
very
kind of the
small.
maximum.
Right.
So it was great for like little small towns, but the challenge was, when you wanted to transmit this a very far distance, DC just didn't work. And something that
Doesn't cut it.
it doesn't cut it.
DC.
Something that's interesting is, and I've heard people say this before, but whenever I did this research, I actually understood it. What the reason why he was so interested in AC was he had all this experience with these pressurized systems, right? With compressors and the air brake and hydraulics and all the different switching. Alternating current behaves like water and is transmitted like water. So you can take super high pressure, break it down to low pressure, and you can do the same thing with AC current. You can take really high AC and break it down to something and go into a home. You can transmit it super far distances at a high voltage, and then you can use a transformer to break it down to come into your home. So he saw the potential that AC had, and basically, he and Thomas Edison, it was kind of funny if you read some of the things, they didn't like each other
They
at
were
all.
not friendly.
They were
Yes.
not friendly, like really snarky towards one another.
My
some of the
mom
comments they would
always
make.
says, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all,
Oh.
which is something I live by.
I'm fairly certain you live by the polar opposite.
Oh, I'm not good at stuff sometimes. Anyways, so this is all when he created the Westinghouse Electric Company, which is kind of a big deal, or at least it was. Fun fact about this, though. Let's see if you think it's fun.
Ooh.
So the DC fanboys out there
Yep.
wanted to discredit AC and let everyone know how dangerous it was, or so was their story. So they made the standard Westinghouse AC motor to be what was used for the electric chair in New York.
Yeah, I saw that.
But that didn't kill the AC dream.
No,
Did it?
not-
The electric chair, it didn't kill it?
I did.
Oh, goodness.
So interesting fact too, one of the World's Fairs, they actually
Chicago.
won the Chicago World's Fair. They won the bid to provide power for the fair, and they actually, built the generator and supplied all of the power for the fair. And that was basically the nail in the coffin for DC as kind of the prominent power distribution for large electric networks. So
Also, because of all that success, they secured the rights to use AC generators for Niagara Falls.
yeah,
And then they
was
had
a
the
big one.
power plant in Buffalo, which was like super far away for that time.
Yep.
Which is pretty awesome. So this has nothing to do with George Westinghouse directly, but after World War II, Westinghouse, the company, became a leader in nuclear reactors, producing reactors for the U.S. subs and for power plants. And I believe that their equipment or their designs are what half of the world's reactors are based off
I'm fairly
of.
certain it's more than half. I did work again for Westinghouse as a contractor when I was working for the reseller, and we worked on what they called their nuclear head upgrade packages. So every so often they have to take these nuclear reactors out of service. They have to upgrade the heads, and that's the spherical part of the head that all the control rods penetrate through. But we would actually work with them on how to, pull those heads out of there, store the rods, put in the new head, all the equipment that was used to do that. It was actually quite a bit of fun.
Yeah, that is very
I
interesting,
have a
isn't
lot
it?
of connection with good old George Westinghouse, and that's my computer making noise again. You're going to yell at me after this
Yeah, it's
recording, I'm
surprising.
sure.
Last one, it was your
and it's-
phone. This
and-
one
But
was...
it's our boss, so we can't complain.
He probably just called me. I did hear some vibrating going on. So anyways, before we move on,
Yes.
how about we take another quick break for this week's terrible inventions?
Okay, so I couldn't keep this one related to...
That's okay.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
okay.
everything George did was great, so
It
how
was.
could it be related?
I have to admit.
Yes.
It was pretty good. So, so this is a technology, and you've heard me talk about this one before. So I first complained about group texting, and I was
You
talking
did.
about how bad group texting is. And this is difficult for me to say because texting is just an amazing technology. You can communicate quickly, effectively, but texting is also potentially the most dangerous thing you could ever do. So today on the
I don't
way
know if
into
that's
the
accurate.
office,
That might be an exaggeration.
it is. I'm on the way into the office today. I'm in traffic, of course, because Pittsburgh stinks with traffic.
It does.
And this person in front of me, I would bet 70% of the time I could tell that her head was down looking at her phone versus looking at, and this was for like 20 minutes in traffic. I ended up being stuck behind her, and it is the most dangerous thing you could do, driving a vehicle and texting at the same time. And here's my rant, and then I'll stop. I believe every vehicle made nowadays has Bluetooth technology, right? I would guess that's a standard. If not, automotive
Close.
manufacturers, let's just make Bluetooth hands-free technology standard. Don't pay extra for it. It's a safety thing. It makes the world a better place. But who I'm more mad at is the phone manufacturers. All phones
You could
have
easily shut it off.
they have GPSs, they have accelerometers, they know when this phone is in motion and in a vehicle. They're so sensitive nowadays. And I know there's options to say, don't use my phone when in motion.
Right.
But I really think that phone manufacturers should step up and literally the screen should be black. The only thing you should be able to do on a phone is a hands-free conversation, zero texting, maybe 911 emergency stuff, but other than that, your phone screen should be black and should not function in a moving vehicle.
I agree. I think that would be
Yeah.
okay.
And
if you're driving,
Yeah.
if you're in the passenger seat, go ahead and sit
Yeah,
there.
and I don't know how you differentiate
I'm sure they
that.
could.
I'm
though.
sure
that
they
couldn't
could
be
figure it out.
difficult. Yeah, they're smart guys. I do love this segment because you just come off as such a cranky old man. It's like you're in your rocking chair telling me about back in your day. I love
Back
it.
in my day, you have to go all the way around to get to the zero on the phone.
All right. So can we move on to some other inventions
Yes.
that he did?
Yes.
All right. So how about the compressed air shock absorber for cars?
Yeah, I did not know this one.
I did not either. So it uses pressurized air, similar to what we were talking about earlier, or other gases to absorb bumps instead of metal, like metal springs. So that means you get that nice smooth ride, right? So in the shock, pressure builds up, and when the car hits a bump, the compressed gas in the shock pushes back against the force of that bump, and it keeps it nice and smooth. Luxury cars and off-road vehicles alike still use this technology.
Could you imagine a vehicle without good shock? Like how?
It's kind of like a golf cart, right?
Yeah, I
You ever
guess.
like ramp one of those things and just like, yeah,
Yeah, I'm with you.
yeah. Another big one that he did was the reduction valve. I'm calling that one out
Yep.
specifically, and that was for reducing pressure of natural gas when it leaves the well, because when it comes out of the well, it's very high pressured. But to be able to ship it off where it needs to
Transmit it.
go and to get it to houses, it needs to be reduced in pressure. So in 1883, he came up with a way to safely pump the natural gas, which, I mean, the U.S. is a big fan of that
Yeah.
because that's a huge resource here. But he obtained 38 patents for the piping equipment.
Wow.
So that's pretty good.
The thing I like about him is it seems like every invention or big invention he was involved in was really about solving big challenges that
Yeah.
affect lots and lots of people. Rail systems, making them safer, transmission of electricity, transmission of gas. I just feel like he really saw big picture whenever he came up with his inventions.
Yeah. So these other ones, I don't know how much he's involved with. Like a lot of them, like the air brake, I think he was
Yeah.
intimately
Instrumental,
involved.
yeah.
Yes. But in '89, oh no, not yet. The Electric and Manufacturing Company, Westinghouse Electric
Yep.
and Manufacturing, I guess they changed their name to
Yep.
that. They created products like the electric locomotive and the electric kitchen stove. So again, it's the company, and he was heading it, but I don't know how involved he was. But in 1889, he purchased a bunch of mining claims in southeastern Arizona and started up the Duquesne Mining and Reduction Company. And it basically
Okay.
created a town of like 1,000 people all in this location that was just in charge of mining and coming up with minerals and things
Okay.
like that. But now it's a ghost town, which I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I'd like to go visit a ghost town. And Westinghouse owned the first, and this is where a weird transition to me came in. Westinghouse owned the first commercial radio station and the first commercial radio broadcast, and was experimenting with television technology as early.
It was right here in Pittsburgh too, right?
Yeah, as early as the 1920s. And so he's this guy making railroad equipment and natural gas stuff
Yep.
and electricity, and then they're also branching out into radio and TV. It all seems kind of weird. So in the 90s, they wanted to focus on broadcasting. So they sold off a lot of their,
Yeah.
we'll say, manufacturing kind of parts of the business, and they purchased radio and TV stations, including CBS, and eventually became the CBS Corporation.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
Westinghouse owns CBS?
apparently,
Okay.
yeah, fun fact, right? Now, I don't understand, because I know Westinghouse, the company, is going through hard times
Yeah.
or bankruptcy.
At least here in
or
Pittsburgh, I'm not sure
something.
what the subsidiaries are doing. But
Yeah, so I don't know if it's actually still in business or if it's
for a-
completely bankrupt.
Well,
at
for a
this
while
point.
there, the nuclear business was purchased by Toshiba. And because I know whenever I was working with Westinghouse a little bit, that was right after that is when Toshiba purchased them, and there was that big office up in the north area,
Cranberry.
in Cranberry above Pittsburgh, and that office was huge, and I'm pretty sure that that's on hard times right now, unfortunately.
I know that they scored a giant contract in China to add, I think it was like 22
Brand
reactors.
new reactors.
And they made one, and China was like, yeah, we're good. We got it from here.
Yeah.
And so that's harsh.
Yeah, a little bit.
But my favorite story of his inventions.
Okay.
He believed that he could extract enough power from heating and cooling in heat pumps that the machine could run itself.
This was the perpetual motion machine,
So
right?
he thought he was going to be creating a perpetual motion machine, which I think is just the most interesting thing when people think that this is possible. A British physicist, Lord Kelvin, told him that this would be violating the laws of thermodynamics, and Westinghouse said, it doesn't make a difference. If he couldn't build a perpetual motion machine, he would still have a heat pump that he could patent and sell to people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even with all this tinkering, worst case, he's still going to make a bunch of money on
He
it.
seemed to be a pretty practical person.
Yeah, I thought so.
But could you imagine having, like in your house, having like a heat pump that could just totally power your home?
Your everything.
Perpetually.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I feel like geothermal could do that, right?
Solar technically
Solar,
can if you live in the right location and you can store it effectively enough.
Yeah.
My in-laws have solar panels
On their roof. Do they
Yeah.
have not the solar shingle things?
No,
Those are too new.
no, not the solar shingles, but they did solar panels a few years ago.
You said you were thinking about that,
Yeah,
right?
I was, but the model's different now with the way you get the credit from the government, and also the way that you can purchase. Like my in-laws, the way they did it, they actually can sell back their extra power to the utility, and they can like make money selling their electricity. And I don't think that model exists as well.
I see. All right, so the end of his life, so wrapping up at the
Yep.
end, 1907, apparently Westinghouse Company hit some financial panics and he was forced to resign. By 1911, he was no longer active in business all around, and in 1914, he was dead.
Yeah.
Dead. Since he was a Civil War vet, though, he's buried in the Arlington National Cemetery with his wife.
Yep.
Yeah, so a few fun facts. Do you want to hear some fun facts?
I love fun facts.
Do
please.
you? All right. During his time, even when he was still alive, he was voted, well, I guess this makes sense, he was voted the greatest living engineer. So that's pretty good honor, because a lot of these people, it's like after you die, they're like, boy, his inventions were great. But he was recognized during his life. That was nice.
I mean, he didn't invent AC, but the impact. If he didn't do what he did for alternating current, we'd all have these big, huge batteries in our houses right now.
Melting down,
lead acid
giving
batteries.
us cancer.
I just feel like that alone, you throw out the air brake, you throw out everything else that he did. What he did for alternating current, I think, is pretty amazing.
Yeah. The best thing he did in his life, when he started here in Pittsburgh, a 6-day work week was the rule. And he inaugurated the first Saturday half holiday in his Pittsburgh factory in 1881.
So it was a five and a half.
5.5. So he's pulling us back to be closer to our European friends that work like 4 hours a week, right?
Or
not all of them,
not
just
all,
the French
just most of them.
and Italians. Thanks, guys. So Pittsburgh notes. In 1918, his house was knocked down and the land was given to Pittsburgh to create the Westinghouse Park. I don't know where that is. Unless that's the technology center, but I don't think so.
That's where it was.
I don't know where that's at.
I don't either.
In 1930, the Westinghouse Memorial, funded by the employees, was placed in Schenley Park.
Yep.
I do know where that's at.
I do know
I
where
go to
Schenley
Schenley
is.
Park and play some disc golf and whatnot.
You would.
I would. And there's also the George Westinghouse Bridge in Turtle Creek, right next to one of his Westinghouse plants there, which is also pretty close to me.
Yeah, there's
it's a very
number of
impressive
high
bridge.
schools and different. I'm pretty sure my dad went to George Westinghouse High School.
Is that right?
I think so.
I don't doubt it. I mean, he's
Yeah.
kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Your dad too. and
Well,
George Westinghouse.
of course.
Last fun fact for me, he was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame, which I didn't know exists, in 1989. I'm hoping that it only started around 1989, because how did it take so long to get inducted, if that's the case?
Yeah, I would think that he would be one of the first people in there.
I would think so, too.
This was fun. I enjoyed it. I was unsure of how much I was going to like this one.
I feel like compared to some of our other inventors that we love, in theory,
He's one of the better ones.
he was one of the better ones.
Yeah.
I think our friend Elon is still winning
Yeah.
for interest, but maybe that's just because it's modern. I don't know. This guy's pretty good.
Although I heard something that Elon is the inventor of Bitcoin.
I
heard
saw that one of like his interns has this
Yeah.
theory. This sounds made up to me.
Yeah, this was a good one. I enjoyed it. So, interesting fact, and this is for all of our listeners, and this is totally unrelated to George Westinghouse.
Oh, perfect.
Make sure you listen to these Inventors We Love series. We got a couple of them. Some are coming out. Some of these are not out yet. But you were like the life of the party whenever you just start throwing out Elon Musk, James Dyson, Thomas
Right?
Edison,
Useless
George
knowledge.
Westinghouse. When you can just have a meaningful conversation about these people, people think you're the smartest person ever.
Yeah, we trick them.
We did over Thanksgiving. We did this fun game where we're like, oh, let's ask questions. It was kind of like Trivial Pursuit, but we were just like inventing questions, and then the other team was making up questions. And all of my questions were about like James Dyson, Elon Musk, Thomas Edison. It was all the people that we've done our inventors, and nobody knew them.
I threw out a lot of James Dyson info over Thanksgiving as well, which is sad.
Yeah. So.
Awesome. Well, I had fun. Hopefully they learned something.
Yeah.
We're going to learn something or something like that.
Sounds good.
All right, till next time.
See you later.